I recently looked at this ridiculous mini LED monitor from KTC. It could be 4K at 160 Hz or 1080p at 320 Hz. So it had like a switch, but there's no 1440p mode. And I was thinking, at 27 inches, I do like 1440p. It's kind of a happy medium. 4K is, sharper than I need because I sit back a little bit. For some people who sit close, yes, 4K is definitely sharper, but it's also harder to drive. Then 1080p, if I'm sitting really close, I can see the pixels. So for me, at the distance that I sit, I kind of like 1440p at the 27-inch size. So they made a monitor just for me. This is the M27T6, and this is a 1440p monitor, 27 inches, 180 Hertz. And we don't have dual modes or anything like that. It's not, I guess the dual mode would be 720p, which would be silly. It's a happy medium. And it also is mini LED, but it's a little bit different because this one is an HVA panel. So you get the benefits of the darker blacks and everything like that. Plus you get the crazy colors that, to me, it's hard to tell the difference between this and the IPS version. This maybe has a little bit better blacks, but once you get the mini LED going on in the background, well, there's just so many colors. We got a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio right here. It's vivid. It's ridiculous. You can use this for analytical work, like going in and tuning your videos, or like I'd like to edit a lot of my photos and stuff. It's ridiculously bright. So let's go through the specs on this. I'm going to every now and then just talk about the 4K monitor, the 4K version as well. If you missed that video, that is the M27P6, if you want to put that into YouTube and check out my video on that. Yeah, I really like that monitor. It's the monitor that's sitting right in front of me right now, but I really wanted to check out the 1440p version, and so that's what we're doing today. So this one has 1,152 local dimming zones, and those can be dimmed. They don't have to be shut off, which gives you so many different colors, and also makes just the response time feel a little bit faster. Now it also has HDR 1400. It's extremely bright, brighter than an OLED. We're getting into the OLED level like when it comes to color, but these are brighter than OLED panels, and they don't suffer from any of the drawbacks of OLED. You don't have to worry about doing all the monitor care. You're not going to get burn-in or anything like that. OLED might be a little bit faster response time, but I'm going to argue that it's hard to tell the difference between the two with the naked eye, especially when you get some of the technologies in there like the MPRT that does like the black frame insertion to smooth out, like the gameplay and stuff. It's, in my opinion, I kind of like the mini LED better for this. OLED I like better for maybe movies and stuff. Anyway, let's keep on going through the specs. So the contrast ratio with SDR is 5,000:1. Turn on HDR 1400, 1,000,000:1. The brightness with SDR is 400 candles per meter squared, whatever it is. And then we've got our 1400 nits brightness. Just saying nits, okay? You okay with that? That's for the HDR. As far as the colors go, you got 99% coverage of the sRGB gamut, 148% volume, 96% coverage of the DCI P3 gamut, 118% volume there, and then the Adobe RGB 95% coverage there with 127% volume. It's got AMD FreeSync Premium, which covers the whole range, and that's also compatible with NVIDIA G-Sync. So I think this monitor is, it's for people like me. I used to do a lot of competitive gaming back in the day, like playing online and stuff. So yeah, you can still play that. It's a little bit harder to drive than the 1080p. So if you're like really want the 1080p and you're okay being able to see the pixels, then the 4K version that can also switch over to 1080p might be more for you. But if you're someone like me who wants just the one setup, the 1440p, you're probably going to like this one. And you can still play all your competitive games on it because the motion clarity is ridiculous. It's also for people who really like HDR colors. You just super bright panels like this. Yeah, it'll be good for you. And then the other person I think this is good for, someone who wants like a really good price to performance ratio. Take a look at that. That's yes. For a mini LED, yes. All right, let me talk about KTC for a minute because I realize that there's some people out there who do not know a lot about KTC as a company. So they've been around since 1995, got 6,000 employees, 1,000 of those are just doing R&D. And a lot of the panels that you're using and have used over the years have been made by KTC. They're in some NECs, they're in some Samsungs, they're in some ViewSonics, and several others. So they do OEMs for a lot of this stuff. And, since 2021, they've been making gaming monitors as KTC and selling them directly to the public, which means the prices are a little bit better. So I can't show what the pixel grid is like, but, we can look here on their website. Let's go back. There we go. So this is kind of what it's like. You got the mini LED matrix, and then the quantum dot light transmission film in the middle, and then we've got our high-speed HVA panel right here. The mini LED matrix, you don't have as many LEDs as you do like pixels on the screen. So it's not quite the same as an OLED where each individual pixel is its own LED and a tiny, tiny, tiny LED. It's not that crazy, but it's a lot better than just having a few zones of like backlighting and then having glow and stuff. So some people are quicker to notice than others, but if you have a really bright something and you're moving it around on the screen, there is sometimes a little bit of bloom around the edges when you're like in a dark area. So I don't notice it that much. In fact, I kind of like a little bit of bloom in my games. I think it makes them look a little bit more magical and softer, but I don't notice it too much with this monitor other than when I'm deliberately trying to move a black or a white square around a black background. But yeah, you can see just the edges of the pixels or the edges of the stuff does bloom a little bit. But I noticed it more on this panel than on the 4K, but still I think it's kind of minimal, but I did see it. I don't know, it's your monitor, if it's not HDR and it's not as good as this, if you're not using an OLED monitor, you're probably not going to be able to see it. I don't even think my camera can capture all the colors that are coming out of this. So I'm doing the best I can here to show you how good it looks, but it looks better in person. So I'm going to play some other games as well, like Keeper, the new game, the Keeper from Double Fine, because now when it comes to the speed of the panel, we need to look at the ghosting. 180 hertz is cool. 1 millisecond response time, gray to gray is cool. They say 1 millisecond on their website. I got 2 milliseconds on their thing. But the thing that matters to me, because both of those are below the human levels of perception, the thing that matters to me is the ghosting performance. So I'm going to hop in and play Dusk because it has a lot of hard edges and a lot of contrast between the foreground and the background. And we're going to check out the ghosting. And what we're looking for with ghosting is like a ghost layer, essentially. There we go. You see right here, a little bit of motion blur right there. See those? That's the pixel, but then we got a little bit of ghosting around it. It's very minimal. Let's skip way forward. Up here, you can see sometimes more. Not much. A little bit of a trail there. Yeah, it's minimal. Okay, right there. See, that's what. See the dark on the sky. That's what ghosting is. But again, with a lot of the older AHVA panels, you'd see an image here, an image here, and an image here. Like it would ghost a lot more. With the mini LED, it ghosts less, but I feel like this is slightly more than what I saw with the IPS, and certainly more than you're going to see with an OLED, but 10 times better than anything in this price range. And I don't think that most people are going to notice this. I get these ghosting shots by setting the camera frame rate to slightly higher than the frame rate of the game. So each individual snapshot with the camera is one image. It's not, just one frame. So I wildly swing my camera back and forth on this one because the dark and the lighter background, you sometimes see that shadow right there. And yeah, we're going to give this a very high score when it comes to its ghosting overall. Here and there, but very, very good. All right, let's go through the ports on this. So if you flip it around, you see we got two HDMI 2.0. Those are good for 144 hertz. Then we got one DisplayPort 1.4. That's 180 hertz. Then you have just a USB 2.0. That's just for messing around with your firmware. When you compare this to the 4K version, the 4K version also has a built-in KVM that allows you to hook up, a couple USB things. So that's a little added benefit you get with the higher priced monitor. If you wanted to, switch from different sources, have your mouse, keyboard, and controller or whatever hooked up to your monitor, you can actually switch those things KVM style and have them work with whatever is plugged up to your other display, your other displays. Okay, as far as the stand goes, another really solid stand. It's the same stand that we had with the 4K. Really like this stand. It snaps on very easily. Of course, Visa mount on the back. And then we have 130 millimeters of height, like height adjustment. You have an absurd amount of swivel. It's like ridiculous. And then when it comes to the pivot, Well, you can turn this 90 degrees and run this vertically. Check that out. This is a beautiful vertical monitor. It's more than I need for vertical, but you know, it's cool that you can do that. As far as like the technology that we have inside the monitor, so you do have some crosshairs that you can turn on and off for your display. They're like actually on the screen. And as far as everything else goes, this monitor, I did have to tune it a little bit, because when you're dealing with this much contrast and this much, I guess, just differentiation between the darks and the brights, for me, when I first turned it on, the monitor was actually too bright. And I was like, whoa. So I actually needed to go in and turn down the brightness, but I had to turn down the brightness so much because I don't need it to be super bright. I turned down the brightness so much that then I noticed the blacks were a bit too black. So they have something where you can go in and do like a black correction. I forget what it's called, but you can actually go in and bring the black levels up. It reduces your contrast, but it allows you to run it a little bit darker, you know, than being full bright. And then also still be able to see the details in your shadows. Now, if you wanted to run it bright, you could still bring up the details in the shadows. And this can be something that a lot of people use in games to be able to see enemies or bad guys hiding in dark corners or hiding in areas that are kind of shadowy and contrasty. So you can just, you know, independently adjust that setting and you can see more in your games. I like the way the games look with it kind of tuned normally. So I kind of leave that minimal, but yeah, it's in there if you want to adjust it. So between the two, the 4K and the 1440p, I don't actually have a favorite. I like some things about one, some things about the other. The 4K is super sharp. I like its dual mode with 1080p. But I really like 1440p at this, you know, resolution because it looks amazing. It's way easier to drive. If you're mostly playing AAA games and you don't care about the 1080p mode and you're sitting back a couple of feet, the 1440p is going to be the best monitor for you because it's going to be easier to drive. You can get more FPS essentially. So, but if you're sitting close and you really care about the 4K, just get a beefier graphics card. I don't know. These mini LED monitors, in my opinion, are the future. I can't wait to see where this technology goes. Last thing I'll mention here is we do have the MPRT technology, which does some strobing to essentially trick your eyes into making you feel like the motion is smoother. And that's another technology. I can't wait to see where that goes because it's given us kind of almost CRT-like motion fluidity. Now, when you turn that on, it does darken the image a little bit, but for me, this monitor is so bright that I kind of liked having it on. Only works in SDR right now. So once we get something like that for HDR, I'll be very excited. Anyway, let me know what you think. This is the M27T6, another mini LED monitor with maybe the perfect set of specs. Let me know what you think in the comments.